think I'll be doing like a few polls here and there for decisions on what videos to do first and what you guys are actually interested and invested in seeing from me here on this channel. It's so nice to see that message when we've just finished watching season 2. We're not going to be in this human form forever, so we need to focus on the eternal. And what is the eternal? The eternal is spiritual. But it was really nice actually to see the way that Eden was there at the Sermon on the Mount and that reunion. Oh, it was so sweet. But I just love their relationship and the way that they work together as actors. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and also welcome if you are new. I'm so grateful to have you all here. So my name is AkuaB and here on this channel I cover all things faith, culture and encouragement, and as you can tell from the title of today's video, I'm going to be continuing on with some of my reactions to the behind the scenes going on over at The Chosen. Today's video being the interview between Dallas Jenkins and Shahar Isaac. So before I get into that, I just want to quickly encourage you, as per usual, to leave a like down below on today's video and also comment something that you're enjoying from my reaction or just something that you enjoyed from the interview in general. And if you haven't already, then please make sure that you have subscribed to this channel, and if you've done all of that already, then please make sure to turn on that notification bell so you never miss a new upload. So as you'll know if you've been following my community post recently, I have just reached 1,000 subscribers and I'm so thankful to God. God is so good. I'm probably going to make a video celebrating this milestone because it's such a big thing for me. I never thought I'd get this far and it just seemed like an impossible goal to reach. So I'm just so thankful to God and so thankful to all of you guys for subscribing, for supporting and just showing love wherever possible. But yeah, make sure to keep an eye out for that celebratory video and some different content coming up as we're in the break between season 2 and season 3 of The Chosen. Before we get straight into the reaction, I just want to quickly encourage you to follow me over on my Instagram at EstherABF or AkuaB, and that is just an extension of what I do here, where I post more daily and consistent content to do with faith, culture and encouragement. And now with all of those announcements and thank yous done, I just want to get into the verse for the video and then we'll get straight into the reaction. Okay, so today's verse of the video comes from Ephesians chapter 6, and today we're going to be focusing in on verses 10 through to 12. And the whole reason that I'm thinking of using this verse for today's video is because these past few weeks I've especially been thinking about the armour of God and the fact that us as believers are soldiers and we are God's army. So just thinking about this kind of imagery of the whole armour of God and that protection and direction from the different elements of it is just really insightful to look into what our character and how we should present ourselves and carry ourselves in this battle. So I always say we are in a spiritual battle, so these verses just back that up and just really teach us how to perceive this life and what we're going through and the battle between good and evil. So in the New International Version, it's titled The Armour of God, this section. So verse 10 starts off with saying, "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armour of God so that you can stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So let's get into some deductions. So the first verse, "Finally be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power." So this totally removes us from the equation in the fact of working through our own strength and our own might and our own physical or spiritual efforts. We are nothing without God and we're nothing separate from him as our own entities. It then goes on to say, "Put on the full armour of God so that you can stand against the devil's schemes." So we're putting this on not just to represent the kingdom and to, you know, represent God in a way on earth, but we're also putting it on to be able to stand against the devil. And that word against, it's not just a defense word, it's also a attack word as well. So that's also working in an antagonistic way against the devil, to push back, to really go against what he's working towards, which is our destruction, and against the kingdom in its essence. So then verse 12 goes on to say, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." So this is a totally spiritual focused verse. It's totally removing our physical bodies. And I think that's so important, and it links back to the verse where it says we must worship in spirit and in truth. I think that's relating to the woman at the well as well. There'll be a time when we worship in spirit and in truth, and that's all that matters. So it's quite interesting that it's solely focusing on the spiritual, because we have so much that we can do in the physical, but there's only so much that we can do. We're not going to be in this human form forever, so we need to focus on the eternal. And what is the eternal? The eternal is spiritual. So it's very interesting that it's talking about not using our flesh and blood, because our flesh can only take us so far. Our flesh in its essence is against God. So in Matthew 26:41 it says, "Watch and pray that you fall not into temptation, for the spirit is willing but the flesh is weak." So that just shows us that the fragility of the flesh, and the way that the spirit is willing and ready to be capable to carry as a vessel what God wants us to do and what he wants to do in and through us. So yeah, I think I've talked enough about this section of verses, but if you've got any more deductions or additional comments to make about these verses, any more insights, then please leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to read them and we can start up a dialogue about it. But yeah, let's get straight into the reaction. Let's go.
We're gonna try to get this to work. I hope you can see me and hear me okay. We have had some major technical difficulties, but I think it's working now. I think you can see and hear me. Thank you so much for being patient and for joining us, even though episode 4 got right into it without any kind of introduction. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you didn't want to hear me talk about all the intro things that I usually talk about. I do have a very special guest for you that I'm going to bring on in just a second here. Shahar Isaac plays the part of Simon, and of course episode 4, more than any other episode, is really Simon's episode. I'm
pretty sure this was the episode where he either believed in Christ and like got saved, or like, I'm not sure, they might go into detail, but that episode, oh my goodness, with the fish, wow, like his brother even was like, yeah, the Messiah has come, he didn't believe him. I just remember thinking like, oh, I can't wait to see this, this change, because it's so real. I've seen it myself, someone get saved, and it's the most amazing thing. And I can't imagine how that must have been for his brother as well as for himself, going through that disbelief and then going through that stage of your faith being tested to some extent to actually believe that the Messiah has come, and then for Andrew to be able to see that transition happen, just incredible.
Really wanted to show in episodes 1 and 2, but then especially in episode 4, the build-up to the story that we know so well from the Gospels, which is when Jesus calls Simon Peter to follow him and does that huge miracle. We'll talk about the miracle in a second, but I'm going to introduce you right now to Shahar Isaac, who is joining us from New York. Shahar, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you very well. Inside.
It's so weird seeing them outside of their biblical historical clothing and seeing them just in like t-shirt and jeans kind of thing. Like, it's so different.
Thank you so much for coming on. I first just want to ask, not many people have heard from you in this whole process. We have so many fans and viewers who have said, when can we hear from Shahar? And so finally we're letting them see you and talk to you. Talk a little bit about how you came across this project in the first place. I know that we knew that Simon was going to be the primary character of the show, and I remember when I saw your audition, within about 20 seconds, I thought, I think we found our guy. What about your project?
I love his and his wife's intuition in casting and things like that, and the detail. You can really tell that they have a heart for this and that they were built for this. Like, God set them up for this position, because their intuition and the way that has translated into such a groundbreaking and impactful series is just like so crazy.
Process of getting the script, what you thought of the project, and your just experience of the casting process.
Sure. So if my face is frozen or anything like that, I apologize. I'll just keep talking. So I prepared a tape. I was in New York and I prepared a tape and I sent it to you. And when I made the tape, I haven't read the episodes yet. I think I just had the material for the scenes. And I just, I was kind of shocked how comfortable it feels and how fluent it feels, as if it's something that I've already said, and it was a big fun to make that tape. And so then I sent it, and about 3 weeks,
It's so interesting how he actually has the accent that he uses in the show. Like I don't know specifically what accent that is, but I think a few of the cast, quite a lot of them actually, they're not from the areas. They're not from the Middle East. They're from like, America or, different places around the world. They're not from the places, the biblical sites where Jesus was and traveled and all of this different stuff. So it's quite interesting to hear that, and hopefully we'll see some kind of backstory to his upbringing and where he's actually from and stuff like that.
How it is. 3 weeks later, suddenly I get a call that you guys want me to come to Los Angeles to meet you. So you guys flew me out. I remember getting there at night and going for a walk on Venice Beach, which is the only place I know in Los Angeles. And there was another serendipitous moment happened there, that I get a text from a friend with my picture and a text from you, which is another crazy serendipitous moment. And then the next morning we met in Los Angeles. We had a beautiful meeting with Beverly in the room, who was so lovely, and everything was just, I think we spent maybe 40 minutes in the room and talked and played the scenes. And then from there I went right to the airport and went back to New York. And I think a few days later, maybe a few weeks later, we were starting already to work.
Yeah. So one of the things I'd love to ask you about, we've talked about this a little bit, the two of us, but you are from Israel. You actually grew up either in or near Capernaum, which is where...
So interesting. Imagine being so like enriched and ingrained in that culture in your upbringing.
In one film. So you have a very strong Jewish background. You weren't quite as familiar with the New Testament, with the Christian tradition. And so what has it been like for you to research this person, this historical figure who is so prominent, particularly in Christian evangelical circles, one of the great heroes of the Bible, the heroes of the faith, knowing that, this guy had so many interesting character traits. As you did your research, what was it like researching a character that you're going to play, but who was an actual, real historical figure? And was there anything that you discovered about him that you thought was really interesting or helpful for your portrayal?
I think that's so interesting that he did mention that they're historical, actual living people that existed at one point physically, because I think especially when you're not in Christian faith circles, often people will be like, oh, it's just a fairy tale, it's just a bunch of, made up story time stories kind of thing. And no, this is historical facts that you can research, that you can really go into and dig deep into, just like you can with other historical figures like Abraham Lincoln, or who else can you look up, or President Truman, like just these different historical figures. You can actually go back and look at their life and see different records of their existence and things like that. So I always find it quite interesting that people kind of try to discredit the Bible by saying it's a bunch of fairy tales and stories, when it is actual historically based stories and things like that. A good film to watch actually is called A Case for Christ. I did a reaction to the trailer or something on my channel and then did a review of it. Such a great movie, and it was quite an overview, obviously, because you can't actually take somebody's life and take all of the details and every single thing that happened and put it into a 1.5 hour movie, but it really went into the process of doing that historical, factual, psychological research and into the history and the the relevance of scripture and of the people and resurrection of Jesus.
Guys, didn't you know I'm actually from Texas? Well, I tell you, you guys wrote such a rich script that I almost felt, because we are looking at everything from we're way advanced in history, then I felt like anything you know now would be knowing the end of the trail of this path. And so in order to not play the end of the trail and start it from the beginning, I went 100% with the beautiful, rich script that you, Ryan, and Tyler wrote. And that has been my map. And I try to detach myself from anything that is known, because everything is known after the fact. And so
I always like it's like what Dallas and what's his name, Luke Dimian talked about, the one who plays Judas. It's like what they talked about. They wanted to stay away from playing the end at the beginning, and that's why the reveal of Judas and probably the unfolding of his character is going to be so interesting and layered. I always find that, when you do watch stuff like that, it's so much more engaging to watch, because it's not some kind of caricature of the person. It's actually their processes, their ups and downs, and it's not as stagnant and, monotone as it could be. So it's going to be quite interesting to see that progression with Simon Peter, because we know that, I'm pretty sure he's a Peter that does end up being crucified upside down, because he doesn't feel adequate enough to be crucified in the same way as Jesus was, to die in the same way that he did. So it's going to be so interesting to see that progression up until that point, just like it is with the other characters, the other disciples, and the way that they will handle persecution.
I think one of the things that really excite me is that we're really kind of building up the world and building up what led to what event. And so for me, I have to, for myself to do my part of the job, I have to be almost oblivious to how it ends, and I have to just follow the road that you guys led us on. And it was just so rich and so full from all directions, and wife and brother and work, and everything is so rounded and full that for me, really, after just reading the episodes, it's kind of clear you know the map, because everything is there for me. And that's a very fortunate thing.
Right. So I know that's very important for you, almost more than any of the other actors on the set, being in the moment. You're very much an actor who wants truth. You want to find the truth of every moment. And that's something that is so important to this show, is we're trying to find the humanity of these people, because so often in Bible projects, the characters are portrayed as very stiff and formal, almost like stage performers. Yeah. And so that's one of the great things that you brought to this show, is the pursuit of the real and the human. I'm curious what it's been like working with the other actors. I'm going to just use a couple as an example, but what's it been like working with Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus? And I'm curious about what it's like working with him, and then working with Lada, who plays Simon's wife, Eden. Two very different actors, two very different scenes, types of scenes that you're doing. But just talk a little bit about what it's been like just working with Jonathan, particularly.
Yeah. So this episode, the episode 4, I mean, there's two very distinct moments. By the way, there's a long cut in that episode, and there's one day there that just the first day that we shot was that scene outside the house with Noah, which is, and then with Paras, and then with Jonathan, and then with Lara. So with all 4, I was really lucky that these beautifully deep scenes were done when we barely got a chance to know each other before. So when we were almost introduced, because we were working in different days, and then we basically got introduced to each other through the characters, which was, I mean, you know, as you said, I'm looking for an easy life, and that way it's more believable, because that person is who he is for you in that moment. Laura, I met her that day, and she was my wife, and that's how I knew her in that day. And the way we worked on that scene was just so gentle and so beautiful that everything really felt so real that day. And it was, my filters to that human being was through the eyes of the character, and her being the character. I didn't know Laura, I knew Eden.
That's so interesting. And I think that the Apostles' Wives is such an interesting topic to get into. I'm pretty sure that Mike Winger actually just did some kind of series. He's doing like a live series or something, like a Q&A kind of thing, and he's just put out a video that I've got on my watch list to watch about the Apostles' Wives. So it's so interesting to see the way that they're actually going to deep dive into the Apostles' Wives and the relationships they have, because I don't know too much about it, especially from just scripture alone. So it's going to be interesting to see the way they read into that, or even try and portray that, any struggles, ups and downs that the disciples might go through in being absent from their homes, or being away from them for extended periods of time. So yeah, but it was really nice actually to see the way that Eden was there at the Sermon on the Mount, and that reunion. Oh, it was so sweet. But I just love their relationship and the way that they work together as actors. So yeah.
And the same was with Jonathan, because we didn't really interact until we were on the shore and he was looking in my eyes. So it was such a powerful thing, because everything felt so real. And I didn't know Jonathan. I didn't have a conversation with Jonathan. It was beautiful. The first words we spoke was "follow me." It was a beautiful. It was just a magical moment, because that's the first thing I've heard almost from his mouth to me, as if I'm a person meeting meeting him for the first time. So it was. For me, it's that. That's how I want it. That's the best. That's how I want it.
Yeah. So there's two parts of the end of episode 4 that I want to ask you about before I let you go. Is because that scene is the climax of the first 4 episodes. It's the most difficult scene that we filmed in the entire season. It was also the most rewarding, but I'd love to ask you about filming the scene where you have to lift the fish into the boat. And as you know, of course, all of our attempts to get real fish fell through. And so instead of real fish, we had to use what we called the green burrito, which was a green tarp that was wrapped around water balloons so that it would feel heavy but still float enough. So how were you and Noah and the other 3 actors, Nick and Cheyenne and George, able to find the reality of that moment, the joy and the excitement, the tears, the strain? The physical strain was real because we made the net very heavy, but can you talk about how you were able to make that work even though you're lifting a fake piece of, a big fake piece of tarp?
That's so funny, because I saw the behind the scenes thing, and just seeing the way that actors really put their all into it, and they just act like that's their job, obviously. But obviously when it's something like this and it's a biblically based show, it's a totally different thing, because there's 3 walls instead of 4, and there's a camera in front of your face instead of Jesus, and like all these different scenes are done in a way that the viewer gets to see and feel the emotion, but the actor might not necessarily be so immersed in it as we are watching it, because there's editing and there's angles and all this different stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see the way that he explains how he feels and how he was actually able to convey the emotion and the gravity of the situation.
How are you able to find the reality of that moment and the emotion of that moment?
Well, again, that's something I think people will understand in the way that you work, which is you put us in a situation that feels like the real situation. And then all we have to do is just actually do what we need to do, which is the most fun thing for us, because we don't need to fake or pretend anything. We're just trying to do something. And that lake, we were waiting for that lake. It was a cold winter in Texas, which was a very surprising thing. And so throughout the shoot, we were all talking about lake, man, we're going to get to the lake, we're going to get to the lake. So by the time we got to that lake, it was such a cold and intense week. And that was, I think, one of maybe the last day. We were all kind of, it was actually going for it. It was actually after the night of fishing. And pulling that thing in was actually heavy, and we all actually did it together. So the thing you see on the moment that you guys captured was us ecstatic from being able to do this together, and only because Nick and Cheyenne and George are pushing in the right time and we're pulling. It was only because a perfect synchronization that made it happen. So it's all real, really. It's all real. We had a beautifully hard task to perform, and then that's the result.
Yeah. So we're going to show in just a few moments. So to you viewers, stick around after we let Shahar go, because we're going to show a behind-the-scenes video that shows just what went into that scene. It's really extraordinary. But before, just two final questions. The first one is about this: what comes after the fish getting into the boat? Your scene with Jonathan, where you fall to your knees, and it's extraordinarily emotional and gut-wrenching. Yeah. I'm also curious how you prepared for that scene. I remember you kind of got quiet, you put your headphones in, you were listening to music to kind of get in that space. And I know working with Jonathan I've seen this with so many other...
Oh, don't you ever just get emotional when you think back to when you got saved? Like, just thinking about him mentioning the scene with Simon Peter and how he fell on his knees to, give his life to Christ and to follow him, just made me think to have to reenact that, because I've gone through it. I'm not sure if Shahar is saved or, some of these people are saved, but it's that turning point. And I just can't imagine acting that out again. I think I'd just be in bits again, but I don't think I'd be able to do it justice. It's one of those things where it's just, I don't think acting would do it justice.
Other actors during those scenes is he has such a beautiful presence that they get genuinely emotional, and it feels as real as it can be. I'd just love to hear your perspective on that scene where you're falling to your knees and just everything is coming out of you. In that moment, capturing Simon's just most desperate plea for forgiveness, basically.
Yeah. Yes. So that was again the way you guys handled that moment was so special, because you allowed us. I remember that very clearly, because we each allowed ourselves to go to whatever direction we want to go before we start shooting the scene. And again, we're playing for real. Everything is played for real, so we're going there. And then you guys were so gentle with the way that you handled it. Everything was so careful and gentle, and it felt like, there was maybe on every set there's 150 people, and you can feel everyone. You could feel everyone in Video Village. You can feel, Leola, and you can feel Paddy, and you can feel everyone, all the energies. Shelly above. You can really feel all the people on set looking at that.
There's something about community. There's something about gathering, and it's just so special when there's something going on, there's something so profound, something so intense as like acting a scene like this. It just really sucks you in, it draws you in. I remember after watching The Passion of the Christ, that film traumatized me. I don't think I'll ever be able to watch it again in my life. I was in tears for like 2 days after I watched it, and I was in such, not a depression, but like a deep state of reflection for like such a long time after that. And I remember looking into it because I was kind of obsessed with it afterwards. I was just looking into all the little details about the filming, and I was just like, you know, it was so traumatizing in a good way and in a bad way as well. It made me reflect on the crucifixion and the good work of Christ on the cross, and then also the sinful nature of humans and the way that we need to repent, and, you know, what God did for us. And just going into what the cast did and all of this different stuff, finding out that people got saved on set, all of this different stuff, it was just, it was so amazing to see. And to, you know, the vibe and the presence on set must have been crazy. It must have been so intense and tangible, the presence of God.
And that energy, it's a powerful thing. And you guys were so gentle. And Adam didn't even call action before we started Adam, our first AD, didn't even call action. And you guys really allowed us to really be gentle and vulnerable in that moment. And that's really not that common of a thing, because really, you know, a set, things need to happen. It was a long day, time schedules need we need to make the schedule, but you guys really allowed for such a gentle and vulnerable moment to happen that it really, you know, all because of the way it was handled, and we allowed ourselves to just go there and let it happen and let it surprise us, you know.
Yeah. So my final thing is, I'm going to let you go here, but if right now there are literally thousands of people all over the world watching. This show is in every country in the world. And our fans and our viewers have been so moved and changed by the show and by performances such as yours. Literally, a lot of people's lives are changing from watching the show. And I was curious if you had anything you'd like to say to the viewers right now, to the fans who have been just so supportive and who literally, because of their investment in season 1, allowed us to be able to even do season 1. And what they're doing now by paying it forward, allowing people to watch it for free all over the world, is what's going to ultimately allow us to do season 2. And I just thought you might have something just to share before you go to the...
It's so nice to see that message when we've just finished watching season 2. Look at the way that God has just used people to pull together and pull their resources and really just give and feed it into something that has fed us. And now we're at the end of season 2 already, and we're expectant for further seasons. Just God is so good.
To the viewers right now.
Yeah, you know, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing, and chosen fans are beautiful and generous human beings, and they reach out and they are open with us, and I'm every day now since the show came out, I'm moved deeply by somebody that reaches out, and I think because of the character that I play, maybe allowing themselves to open up, and it's really moving and it's really beautiful, and we really feel the support. We really feel the support when we're there, when we shot the first part of the season and the second part of the season. Throughout, we really feel this energy on set of support from everyone. And so I would first of all like to thank everyone and to say that in this situation, you know, we love you and we are all in this situation together. And it's this beautiful thing that with all the hardship, we are able to go on and be together in this moment. And I think we're making this lemon into a mojito, you know?
Oh!
So we're now together,
No.
but maybe think that we can...
I love how his personality, Shahar's personality, actually does slightly reflect Simon Peter's. It's just that kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of personality, and it's just, yeah.
Keep with ourselves for after... the situation is over, is that we are always together. We're always in this world, all of us. We have friends from India and from the Philippines and Bolivia and Brazil and from all over the world. We're always together, and we love you, really. And we feel the love. We really, really feel the love. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Shahar. I'm going to let you go. I love you, brother. I can't wait to see you again for season 2, and we're going to continue we're writing some really good things for you for season 2, and I can't wait to be back with you all on the set. I'll see you soon.
Beautiful. Love you, brother.
Thank you.
Oh, it was so interesting to see the way that, because now they've just talked about him in season 2. Actually, I'll talk about this in my intro. Let me just pop this laptop down. Okay, so that is the end of today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Now let's quickly get into some deductions from that interview. So it was actually quite interesting to learn that Shahar is actually from Israel, and he's got a pretty cool name actually. I really wonder what it means. I might have to Google that later. But I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what your favourite part of it was. One of my favourite parts was them talking about the aspirations for season 2, and also the scenes that Shahar acted out that were difficult but also life-changing moments for Simon Peter, and in his, you know, in his life journey as well, and the fact that they talked about him as a historical character as well as a biblical kind of story, New Testament figure. So it was quite nice to see the way that they intertwined those two and didn't strictly talk about it from a theoretical and imaginatory perspective in just plain script writing, and they actually talked about the fact that they didn't want to be writing the end from the beginning, as they talked about with Luke Dimian. So that was quite interesting actually. But yeah, I can't wait to see what they do with Simon Peter in season 3 and the seasons to come, as the progression of his character and the development of his character starts to unravel. And also we've seen that we've seen what has happened with Simon Peter in season 2, and I think that we kind of saw the initial Simon Peter come out in season 2 again. Issues with pride, issues with prejudice, issues with, you know, just all of that negative stuff kind of came to the surface and then simmered back down when Jesus kind of talked him out of it, or, you know, like made him think from a different perspective, especially in his, especially in relation to his relationship with Matthew. And I think that was just a massive point of contention for Simon Peter's character in this series. We've seen so much growth through that depiction of the relationship, and just seeing the way that his mind and his perception has really been stretched and challenged and, you know, proved and just refined by his fellowship with Christ. So it's been quite nice to be able to see that development through season 2, and them obviously talking about their aspirations for what they want to do with Simon Peter in season 2 was really nice. I think especially leading up to the Sermon on the Mount, we saw all the, you know, him really wanting to protect Jesus, and, you know, is this a good idea to do all of this public speaking, and, you know, you're gathering much bigger crowds and things like that. We're seeing that protective side of him, and I'm pretty sure he's the one that nicked the persecutor's ear, or whoever it was, with a sword or something, in, you know, when Jesus was about to get taken away or something like that. So it's going to be quite interesting to see that side of him develop. And, you know, as much as we are saved and we're totally transformed by Christ, we're still flesh and human beings, and we still fall short. So seeing those sides of him creep back out and brim to the surface here and there is going to be interesting to see, and the way that he will handle it as he matures in Christ. So yeah, that was a great interview, and it was just nice to learn a bit more about Shahar. And yeah, the questions that Dallas asked were really insightful and really challenging. So yeah, I hope there's more interviews like this out there, maybe in group settings or something like that, so we can have a peek behind the curtain into some of the actors' lives and, you know, just their thoughts on playing the characters that they do. But yeah, I'll hopefully be reacting to more behind the scenes content. Look out for more different kind of videos. A few people have commented, you know, different suggestions here and there, especially on the community post the other day, to do like reviews of Bible stories and things like that. So I'm looking into the possibility of doing that, and I think I'll be doing like a few polls here and there for decisions on what videos to do first and what you guys are actually interested and invested in seeing from me here on this channel. Also, I do think I have a vlog coming up. I'm going to like a Christian retreat kind of thing for my Christian union at my university, so that'll be really interesting and fun to film and edit and upload for you guys to enjoy soon. So watch out for that in the coming week or two, and yeah, I'll catch you guys in my next one. Stay blessed and bye.